Leeds, Leeds, Leeds. What is happening? Welcome to Working Hours, a show about a place called Leeds, a time called now, and an activity called work. My name is Simon, and this is all my fault. What did you want to be when you grew up?
Not what I'm doing now, that's for sure. I was torn between being an accountant, because I absolutely love the black and white of numbers. You can't mess with them. They are what they are, and I love that. And a vet,
All right.
which couldn't be more different, could it? But I have always loved animals. I became vegetarian just after I turned 13, and that was the beginning of the 80s, a long time ago, and people weren't doing it then. And none of my family were doing it. So yeah, I've always had a passion for animals and welfare. But my safe place was maths because it made sense.
Yeah.
I didn't do either, by the way.
So how far did you take the maths then? Did you do it up to sort of A-level degree or just GCSE? Well, O-levels, I suppose.
I left school at 15.
Right.
So I'm really aging myself already out of 5 minutes in. I left school at 15 years old because school just stopped holding an interest for me. I passed my maths O level, I think it was back then. I passed it without studying or trying. I just did it. I just turned up and did it. And I wasn't getting anything else out of school.
Yeah.
So I remember out of the sciences, physics was my favorite because that made sense. That was logical as well. Physics is very logical. It's very like maths.
Yeah.
And I could pass those exams without trying as well. I could get 100% marks in mocks. And so I just lost interest. And I regret it so much. If I could go back, that would be what I would change. I would have gone on to university, but I just didn't have an interest in it. I wanted to be practical and do stuff. And I think that's probably stayed a theme for me throughout my life. I'm a doer. I want to get in there and get it done and move on to the next thing, fix it and move on to the next thing. You can't do that in academia. It's all about theory and what if you do. I'm more of a doer than that. I'm more practical, I think. I can't remember what your question was now, Simon.
It was about what you wanted to be when you grew up. we did go on a divert.
This is what I do, I'm afraid. Yeah, so so obviously being a vet was blown out of the water because I wasn't staying on at school, and I did prefer physics to biology, so it wasn't going to happen. I could not cut a frog up if you paid me £1 million. It wasn't ever going to happen. So that went out the window very quickly. And I think one day somebody said to me, what if somebody comes in and tells you they want to put their dog down and it's not ready for that stage, if you like? Well, I won't be able to do it.
Yeah.
I'd end up with 1,000 animals in the back garden. So yeah, that wasn't realistic for me and my beliefs, I suppose, my values.
Yeah. So what did you go straight into then from school? If you left at 15, did you go straight to work or?
I went straight into work. They used to have youth opportunity schemes back in the day, and I went straight into work into an office. Just by chance, that's what came up. I learned how to type. Learning how to touch type is one of the best things that happened to me back then. It's just, you never lose it. It's just fantastic. It's wonderful. So I learned to touch type. They were teaching you to almost be a secretary or something like that. So I learned some great basic skills that have helped me throughout my career, to be honest. Because if those things are easy, you can focus on other things. I was an office junior in 2 or 3 different companies. I would move to the next one, and I've always been a hard worker. Whatever you give me to do, I'm just going to get it done, and I'll do it fast and I'll do it well, and you'll wonder how I managed it, but I will. That's what will happen. So I ended up at Kay's Catalogue.
All right, yeah.
And at Kay's Catalogue, I very quickly worked my way through a few different jobs to the point where I was actually training other people and covering for the training manager when she wasn't available, applying for managerial jobs, and I was only I want to say 18, 19, and I was managing people. That's hard. If you're more of an analytical, logical person, that's quite difficult. So I was learning as I went. I probably got lots of things wrong. I'm sure I did. And then I moved across to British Sky Broadcasting. I don't know if you remember that. It was before Sky.
Yeah.
And I was a manager there, and I went back to my roots, and it was all about data. So I was the quality control manager. I was 22, 23, and I was the quality control manager. So I was in my absolute happy place because I could I had all the data, but it was all brand new, so I had to figure it out from scratch. I had all the data I wanted to make things better and to check everyone was doing their jobs properly. And I could also solve problems. It's like, this is my happy place. Fantastic. And from there, it closed down because Sky bought the whole thing out. And I had my first baby, so there was nowhere to go after that. It was kind of start again.
Yeah.
And I ended up going to when my eldest was about 9 months old. I ended up going to First Direct.
Yeah. When they sort of first opened up, was that?
Close, yeah. Probably about a year in.
Yeah. So that's what, mid-90s, something like that.
Yeah, he 92.
Yeah.
So I think they started about 89. I should know this. I was there a long time. I think
it was last century.
It was quite a while ago. Yeah. I've done nothing but tell everyone how old I am so far.
Well, let's get on to the juice of it then. So what are you doing now? You're listening to Series 3, Episode 3 with Debbie Rhodes. This is another Zoom interview recorded on the 15th of February, 2022. Hey up. So there's nothing driven by the media in this week's introduction. Well, except for my guest. Debbie specialises in digital consulting, translating business goals into digital strategy. She works with teams to adopt a more digital approach and deliver an exceptional user experience, bringing over 20 years of experience to the table as a digital marketer and consultant, working across a range of sectors and industries, including financial services, mutuals, charities, and healthcare. Debbie also supports a large animal charity as a trustee in her spare time. I'm really interested in hearing from anyone in Leeds or from Leeds in whatever industry, sector or role you are in. Come on the show, Leeds. Be the guest, Leeds. Represent yourself, your role, your experience, your pay grade. What is your experience? Don't let someone else tell you. Come and tell me yourself. How do you feel about work? How much have you ever even thought about where you spend most of your life? What do you like and not like about living that way? What do you do, Leeds? Please like, share, follow and subscribe to Working Hours. This is a pretty unique show. I haven't seen anyone else having this conversation in this way. I'm speaking to the people in the offices and bedrooms doing the work. I want to speak to the people in the institutions, the factories and shops of Leeds. Wherever loiners are working, I'd love to hear about it. If you want to support Working Hours, please leave a review or a rating for this show. If you can afford £1 a month, you can sign up to the Patreon to help this show with covering its costs and supporting its marketing so that I can reach more people. It's also £1 a month because even though I really need cash for the show, it's more important to me that anyone can be a contributor to the project, should they want to be. And that's as low as the amount goes. If you're a Leeds-based organisation and you would like to support this project with either sponsorship or advertising, then I would also love to hear from you. Go to patreon.com/workinghourspod right now and sign up to help me in getting those 1,000 loiners recorded for Working Hours over this decade. There will be bonus material in the future on the Patreon, but not if no one signs up for it. So the more you can do, the more I can do, and every little bit helps so much. Please do rate and review Working Hours, and I'll see you next time, our kid.
So, I run a company called Digital Covered. And it's not a cupboard, it's covered. Apparently I don't say it right often. So it's Digital Covered. We, on the surface, we look like a digital marketing agency. If you peek in and have a look, if you look at us on LinkedIn, that's what we look like on the surface. So it can be a bit of a challenge because what we actually are is more of a consultancy. We love coming in and helping a company do what they can with digital. So digital is your websites, your social media, your advertising online. It's anything to do with being online. That's what digital is for us. And what we find is a lot of companies don't quite know what to do with it, and it's a bit scary, and they're not sure how to manage it and how to get the best out of it. If you go to a traditional digital marketing agency, you might well not know what to ask for in the right way and might not get there for what you want. So we try and bridge that gap between the real experts in technology and search and social media and so on with the client, because until a few years ago, I was always the client looking for those agencies. So I'm used to that. And we try and bridge that gap between the two and make sure they get the optimum results and experience from that collaboration. A lot of it we can do. So we're very much into processes and culture, change management, agile, how user experience. We're into those things. We've got a lot of experience there. But when it comes down to ad strategies for your social media on Facebook or creating a campaign and all the graphic design that's needed for that, then we bring in trusted partners, people I've worked with for decades quite often, that have their own little companies that specialize in each of those types of things. It's just about optimizing what you can do with digital channels, and a lot of companies don't seem to understand what that is, because it's it's still quite new to some companies. They've got the processes sorted where it's on paper. They know they have to post this out on this date. They're even doing some emailing sometimes instead. That's great. But actually, how do you join all that up? And how do you start when you're all busy? You've all got a day job. You're all doing this full time. You're all busy. Of course you are. So how do you dig into that digital side of things and minimize the risks of it? So it can take, it costs money, it costs time, and they're things that most companies aren't throwing around, especially now. It's been a tough old few years, hasn't it? So demystifying digital, that's what we do. That's the short answer. I'm not very good at the short answers, but that's what we do.
Well, that's a good summation. It's nice and concise. So how did it come about then? So this is your company?
Yeah.
And so why did you go sort of the self-employed route? What sort of took you into it? And then maybe take us through some of the journey of sort of like, developing the company and, where you started from and where you've got to in a brief, I suppose.
That's a really long answer, Simon. You're going to have to do a lot of editing. Okay, so I was at First Direct for 19 years.
Right.
And I love change, by the way, but First Direct allowed me to do that because I changed roles every year or 18 months. I changed departments a lot. I moved around the company. I did everything. I was doing lending one year. I was doing credit control another year. The beauty of First Direct, the beauty of that grounding is that it was always about customer service. Everything we did was about customer service. Always. It was always about that quality of what you were doing and how it mattered, especially in the credit control bit. It was beautifully done, really well handled. And then I moved into marketing. And because it was the only team I hadn't been in yet. So off I went, and I literally used to persuade people to give me jobs that they didn't know they needed, because I wanted to change again. I wanted to learn something else. So I moved into marketing and ended up running their digital marketing team website side of things. But I did do a lot of the other roles like advertising and emails, and I did all of those roles on my way. But I ended up running the website team, and we were constantly tweaking and changing, looking at the data, fixing journeys, making them a bit easier to understand. And that moves from customer service into user experience. That's what digital people call it, but it's really about experience wherever you go. And I absolutely loved doing that. But then there was an opportunity to take redundancy, and I'd run out of jobs I wanted to do. It was time to go. And I still consider them family. I still keep in touch with a lot of people. But back in 2011, I left. Long time ago now.
Yeah,
but
I mean, you were there a
still,
long time as well. So, and you'd done every sort of department. So you must have known the place inside out by then.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I started in the call center, was a call center manager, moved all the way over throughout literally moving around the office. Yeah. But they could all hear me, by the way, wherever I was, people could still hear me. People would say, I can tell Debbie's in the building. She's like, you're miles away from me, we can hear you. Okay, all right, fair enough. And it was quite true, because I have quite a loud laugh. But when I left there, it was an amazing opportunity, because I then had the option of, what do I want to do next? I spent some time with a coach, and I fully recommend doing something like that every now and then in your career, because you end up just on a path otherwise. I'm just going to do with the next thing around the corner. So I did that, and I learned from that I love change. I love fixing problems. I love a challenge. I'm not very good at plodding along or staying in one place too long. So how do I do that? And I knew in my heart back then, all those years ago, the best way to do that is to be able to move around companies. And the only way I can do that is to do it for myself. So do I become a consultant, a contractor? There's all these different titles for these things, isn't there? So what I wanted to be was a consultant, but I wasn't confident enough at that point. I wasn't confident enough in my offering, my skills. Having been at one company 19 years, that can actually impact your confidence a little bit, because you're pigeonholed. It happens. So I then started doing contract work, project work, because I did a lot of project management back at First Direct. You had to get stuff done. So I started doing that, and I worked at a few companies doing that. And then in 2015, so 6 years, I can't count, can I? 4 years later, I set up my company. And we called it Cornerstone Designs.
Right.
So that's what we trade under. That's the company's name, Cornerstone Designs. And I kept doing contracting work under that. And I would work with building societies and charities, Lloyd's Bank at one point, and I would just pick up the next contract. And then at the beginning of COVID, it struck me that I couldn't go into their offices anymore. So I'd come across a new challenge. I couldn't be part of their team and get on with the work with them, because none of them were there. So what will I do about that next? Now, and I was at the place where I was ready to take this step more into consulting, and we changed. Then we added the title Digital Covered, because it's now about digital, not the whole. Whatever you need me for, I'll come and do it. But what those years gave me was a massive understanding of the challenges companies have. And we're not necessarily talking small companies. There's a lot of, what it tends to be is older companies. So the size doesn't matter particularly. It's that they've been around a long time, so it's hard to change.
It's ways of doing things, and this is the way it's always been done. And well, I don't know about that. How do we do that?
And it's not. And one of the things I often say is, it's not actually about technology. It's about people and culture.
Well, that shift to Zoom, like through COVID, like Zoom coming out of nowhere, it's not like that remote working possibility hasn't been there for the previous 10 years and hasn't been available. I remember being in a workplace and saying to, like they want to do savings and stuff. It's like, stop doing all these meetings and paying for travel everywhere and get
Yeah.
everyone on video conferencing. You'll save a fortune. And it was like,
Yeah.
oh, it's so difficult to do. It wasn't.
It's
But
not, is it?
then
But you have to
everyone did it.
accept
And
it.
yeah, that's it.
You have to accept it. And that's what COVID has been the biggest friend to digital.
Mm,
And that's such a weird thing to say.
mm,
But so many improvements have come out of COVID in the digital sense.
mm,
And the use of it, the acceptance of it.
mm,
People don't like change. Most people, I love it, but most people don't like change.
yeah.
We certainly don't like change if it's forced on us, including me. I
Yeah.
don't like that. Who does? So it was kept at arm's length unless I had to do it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to that Zoom call thing or Teams call. Other
Yeah.
providers are available.
Yeah.
There's people didn't want to do that. They wanted to, and we human beings on the whole want to interact with each other and see each other, don't they? So that it's nice that's coming back as well. I can remember being with a particular company and wanting to work from home occasionally and dial into calls, and they just didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
And when I tried it, you weren't heard.
Yeah.
Because you were the only one that wasn't in the room.
Yeah.
And I'm not shy. I don't think I'm rude either, but I'm not shy and I will be heard if I need to be. But it was very difficult because they just didn't get it.
Yeah.
If you're not here, we're going to carry on without you. Well, I am here.
Yeah.
I'm over here. Look on this big screen in your room.
Yeah. So it's like you're off having a holiday somewhere.
Why aren't you here? Why didn't you turn up? So that's been a blessing out of COVID. You've got to look for the good stuff as well, haven't you? What you can learn, what got better, and that absolutely did. It made us all a bit more transportable, didn't it? We can move around more, and we're embracing technology.
Yeah.
And
I think as well, like the global sort of aspect of the internet, of being able to, so you don't have to fly and for 12 hours and stuff. It's like you just have to rearrange your meeting time and then everyone can be there at once and it can all be done. Some people lose some sleep, but you're going to do that on a long flight anyway. So
yeah, my biggest regret, I started working for a global team, a HSBC team in my last year at First Direct. And my biggest regret is that was the time when they actually cut back on travel. So I'm like, I can go to Brazil for that. It's fine. No, we're not doing it anymore. Like, seriously? I just missed out. I missed out on it by months. So they actually started cutting costs and travel expenses and being greener. Just as I was going into a role where I might have got some travel out of it. But anyway, yeah, big regret. Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, you've mentioned in terms of some of the clients that, I was going to ask what your clientele was, so I would have imagined it be sort of SME, but you've said, like mostly older companies. I mean, and you've worked with like big names. You've worked in financial services. You've got some great quotes from bank, these banks on your website. I mean, I would imagine that helps. That must help massively reputationally, sort of starting
Definitely.
out. But you said as well, you kind of got pigeonholed after being in First Direct for 19 years. So was it easy to sort of pick up those early clients, or did you really have to? Was it you chasing everyone to kind of get those jobs, or did it come to you quite easily? Were people sort of like, "Oh, you're doing this? I'd really like to have you."
Yeah, well, when I first left First Direct, it was terrifying. I didn't even have a CV. I'd never had to write one. They didn't really happen back then, 19 years before. So that was first. I need to write one of those, and I need to figure out what I want to do and who I am and what makes me happy. And that was marvelous. That was a fantastic opportunity to do that. And then I got a bit scared again.
Yeah.
And I took the easy route and just went for contracting work. And you just get a recruit. The biggest thing there is getting the right recruiter or recruiters that actually understands you.
Yeah.
because I have always been very hard to pigeonhole, and I'm quite happy that I am hard to pigeonhole. I'm not one thing or another. I actually have that full breadth. Running teams of marketeers means I understand all of it. Including how to operate teams and what the processes look like, and the whole thing. So it's very hard to pigeonhole me and say I offer this product or that product. So I got a bit nervous, and at the beginning just went into contracting work. And the easiest thing to do, and that paid the bills, and it helped me build my confidence back up. I don't want to sound like I was broken. I wasn't.
No, but you get institutionalized. That's, it is a long time. It's a massive change for you.
That's a really good word for it. I've never been aggressive about my career. It's always been about what will interest me and what will I want to do next. It's always been that for me. So, I've been able to make some of those choices. It's not been about I've got to earn more money next year. It's been about what do I want to do. But I am a worker bee, and I need to work. I have to work. It's not an option. I just don't know what I'd do with myself otherwise. Drive everyone else mad. So I started in contracting. It was fairly easy because of my skill set, because of my experience. It was quite easy to get into delivering digital type projects for other companies. It was quite easy. I got snapped up, and they always last for 6 to 12 months. So after a year or so, 18 months, it almost became I don't want to be tied in for 6 to 12 months. I'm not sure I like that. So obviously my confidence was coming. That was growing, and I was experiencing different companies and their own challenges and how they operate. I went to a mutual, a society, a healthcare society, and I went for 1 year and ended up staying over 2. And when you look back at all of these, I'm always looking for what can I learn, what would I have done differently, what did I get out of that? I should have left sooner. That's one of those things. I should have stuck to my year. That's what they needed. They needed somebody to turn the website upside down, sort it out, get the processes in place, get them working in a more test and learn. So that data thing. What are we learning from that data? Have we got enough of it? Let's try this next. So getting that moving, getting that process in place, getting the right team in place is what I could do in a year, and I should have left then. So I did that and stayed too long, but it's okay. They we got out of each other what we needed in that time. Then moving into a couple of building societies, and another mutual seems to be my niche. It seems to be where I'm led, and they tend to be companies that are older and a bit nervous, or have had their fingers burnt. They've found this wonderful shiny agency that can build them a new website or do this for them or the other, and what they haven't done fundamentally is go right down to the bottom into the foundations to make sure that's doable and sustainable, and that you cannot just do a shiny new website or launch a fantastic new social media strategy if the company that is under that doesn't know what to do with it. You can't. Well, you can, but you're just wasting everybody's money.
Well, and you're going to lose momentum. You have to be able to keep momentum, don't you, with digital stuff? It's like, because it's the constant output. So you have to think something up, but then be able to do it sort of ad infinitum.
From financiers, I'll often hear in companies, well, when we get that working, we'll start to save money, won't we? No. Why would you save money? Why wouldn't you be spending more money to do it better and better? It's about what's coming in and making sure you're optimizing those new leads and sales and looking after them. And they often have this profit and loss thing going on. So they'll look at a budget for a business case, and they'll have this wonderful process in place where it's got to, within 2 or 3 years, wipe its own bum, as they say. So it's got to have started. And I'm saying, But if you want to invest in a brand new website, it's never over. Else you'll need a new one in 2 or 3 years again. You'll have to start again. So great, let's get the bones working and let's get that new website built and let's create you this wonderful new digital shop window. But that's not it. And a lot of companies even now still struggle with that. It's not over. It's not like creating a magazine or a book that's printed and finished. You have to continually optimize it and test it and play with different ideas and layouts and journeys. And that's the bit I love, because that ticks the change box. It's never over. Wonderful. And financiers sometimes will struggle with that. They can't pigeonhole it. They can't say at this point it's done and it's bringing in this many sales. Who's looking after them? Who's checking that was the right way to do it? Who's going back and, those types of things. So yeah, it's a minefield, but it's exciting. And I can't remember what your original question was, Simon. I've done it again.
That's fine. It's more what you say than what I ask. So it's not a show about my questions. It's a show about what people are saying.
Did I answer them?
Yeah.
Oh.
So I've got a question on change, like generally within work. So I'm going to throw this in early. So because you work in the realm of change and you're all about change. So the question is basically, if you could change any 3 things about your work, like now, what 3 things would you change? So you can change any 3 things about your work. And what would you change?
Oh, that's an awful question. Oh my!
We can come back to it if you want.
No, I need to answer it now. Okay. It'll just worry me. What 3 things would I change? Well, so I'm going to go backwards before I go forward. I'm like the Billy Connolly style of interviewee. Who knows where we're going next? I started digital. So digital covered started to evolve at the beginning of COVID. So we're a couple of years in now. All of our clients to date have been through recommendations and referrals and people that already knew me.
Yeah.
All of them.
Yeah.
Which is amazing and wonderful and fantastic, but that's not sustainable.
Yeah.
Last year was too busy, and entrepreneurs will think I'm crazy. Am I allowed to swear on here?
Yeah.
Batshit crazy? So a lot of entrepreneurs will think I'm batshit crazy, but it was too busy last year. We were too busy. We were working too hard. And you lose sight of who you are and why you do this when that happens. And it's okay, it happens occasionally and it paid the bills. We're actually spending this quarter figuring out who we are, what we're about, and why we do this. So we've actually gone back to that change. What do we want to be? So I can kind of answer this with a bit of a announcement, I guess, that we are changing slightly what we do and how we do it. Can I think of 3 things? I'm not sure. So the first thing we did, so we launched our website at the very beginning of 19. So we've gone back and rehashed that.
Yeah.
So our new website went live in January. So I'm cheating a bit, but that's one, because I've already done it. The next one was, or in conjunction with that, the big question was, why do we exist? What's our proposition? What's the point of us? Because if you don't have a point, if you're not here for a reason, why would anyone else buy into that? So we did that work, and that's where demystifying digital came from as a proposition. We revisited our values, and they're so important. And if you get that wrong or you are led away from them, it's painful. So we revisited those, and we've rewritten them a little bit, and we will stick to them now. And it's not just about the client that we're looking to work with. It's important to have your values and for them to be really public when people are looking for you. But equally, I'm going to pick and choose clients. I want to work with people that share similar values and have similar ways of being respectful of each other. So yeah, that was important. And then the third one, I know I'm cheating. The third one for me is our new product offering. So what we do and how we do it is really hard to explain. And I don't know if you've heard of the elevator pitch. It's very
your sort of 2-minute pitch. You're going up in the elevator. You've got an important person who's got all the money. Go.
Yeah. Well, you've got 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Explain what you do.
Yeah.
You know me now. You've known me a little while, and I can't do anything in 30 seconds, so I have no chance. But it's hard to explain what we do because it's so all-consuming and so high level and strategic. It's really hard to pin that down and put it into a box and say we offer this or that, because we're not a specialist in one of those many things that come under digital marketing. We want to help you do better. That's kind of it. And it's like, who's going to buy that? What do you mean? How am I going to buy that from you? What's your product?
Well, you're like a fixer, aren't you? You're sort of like,
I like that.
what are they? This is the power of advertising, isn't it? I can't remember the name of the people who are using Winston Wolfe as. It's the big insurance company with the red phone. Why can't I think?
Direct Line.
Direct Line.
Direct
God,
Line.
That shouldn't have taken that long for me to.
Direct Line, who don't use
comparison websites. So they were using Winston Wolfe, the fixer. It's like we know the people. We know the people who can get the job done for you. That's the kind of area that you're in, isn't it? You're like, I've got a guy for that. Or I've got a lady over here that does that.
I like that. Yeah, that's good. I like that. So we through lots of conversations and research and why are we here? What are we about? We've actually decided to look into a few different actual product offerings that we can do that don't need all those associates and other skill sets, so that clients start to have something they can really understand and search for and dig into, because it's black and white. Whereas nothing I do is black and white. So how do we get that black and white proposition for people to understand? I cut you off, Simon, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, and it sounds a bit like you're trying to give, because you have been working through recommendations and stuff, so that there's that knowledge of you already there, so that what I'm trying to get at is kind of like a pre-existing relationship, and it sounds a bit like you want to build that into new clients. It's like we don't just want someone to come and then be going away. It's like we want to find new interesting things to do, but we also want to build a bit of a relationship with you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for us, the long-term relationship is what we want. A lot of agencies will insist when they introduce you to a specialist that they take a cut, and it might be a one-off recommendation referral fee, or it might be an ongoing 5%, or we don't do any of that. So while we're working on the project and they're working under us, they're working through us. However, if you want to carry on that relationship and we don't need to be part of that next project, I'm okay with that too. Because we found you a fit. We found you somebody you can trust and you can rely on. And I don't need to take a cut of anybody's money now, because I want you to come back to us another time for something else. And I've had a few associates come to me over the last year and say, so-and-so's come to me and said, could we work direct? Are you okay with that? And I'm going, yeah, absolutely. If you want to, go for it. So, we've also helped other small businesses get more work, get more clients as well. And I love that. It's not going to make me rich, but that's not why I set this company up. So it is about, let's all just do better, and let's work with people we want to work with, and let's have a bit of fun with it. Let's enjoy it, and let's learn. Let's do better with our digital stuff. Very technical term, that, digital stuff. And I've completely gone off track again, I think.
Well,
but yeah.
No, I don't think you have, and I think you've opened up a fairly interesting area here for me. So So, there was that story, I think it was during COVID, and there was a big data leak, and it was like, why are they using Excel for this? And it was something, I'm pretty sure it was in the NHS, and it was kind of like, why is this happening? It's like, none of you journalists have ever worked in a British company recently, have you? Like, especially not a public sector one. It's like,
why don't you know?
Well, yeah, it's like all of these. You go in some places and you're like, my God, how are you still? Like,
How are you
they're
still alive?
yeah,
Illegal?
you're still
Are
running
you
on
legal?
NT, and like, yes, like, what are you? Like, how are you in business? This is not how you run a place. So yeah, so I mean, there is a lot of problems with a lot of industries in Britain and the way that they run. And like, I worked in London. I've said this before. There was pretty much every company that I worked for in London. They were pretty much on it. And then
Yeah.
coming back up here, they're trying, but they're not always quite
No.
getting there. So it'd be interesting to get you. Obviously, you'll have to do this in a fairly diplomatic way. I don't. But yeah. So, what's your sort of take on like companies' abilities and internal company knowledge, and like, is it kind of a smorgasbord, or are we more good than bad, or more bad than good? What's your sense of it?
There's an absolute passion to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And companies seem to be going, literally going completely left or completely right. Some of them are so fixated on data security and that they're actually gone too far.
Yeah.
And they can't function properly anymore because they're so wrapped up in the rules.
Yeah, no one can pass any information.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, they've gone too far the other way. And it's like, well, how am I going to, where's my marketing list? We can't have that. Can't have that list. Or I'm going to hand deliver it to you on a disc. I'm like, oh my goodness me. You don't need to do that. It's not that bad. And to the other extreme, which is it'll be fine. It won't matter. It won't hurt. It won't be us. What happened to us? And I think we're doing okay. That's on a bit of paper on top of the filing cabinet. It'll be fine.
Yeah. Near an open window with a brief. Just everyone's personal data there. It's fine.
It's all right. It's okay. We meant well. We didn't mean to do it. And you do have those extremes. And another problem with agencies is that experts will pop up and charge you lots of money to fix it. And I'm being a bit negative here, which is not me, but they will prey on those concerns or fears or lack of knowledge. And I think that's the same for digital in general. When there's a fear or a lack of knowledge, then there will be people that want to make some money out of that, unfortunately. And what we try and do here is help you get to the right people for the right reasons and at the right level for you.
Yeah.
So what Lloyd's Bank needs is not the same as the RSPCA.
Yeah.
Trying to think of a massive difference in, but I've worked with them both, so it's different. So and that's what it has to be. It doesn't all fit. Not one size fits everybody. And of course, data is important. I don't want people having my data either. And it's incredibly important. And as long as your process is right, and digital technology can help massively with data protection. It really can.
Yeah.
There's so many different products out there and softwares. That's another minefield. What do I pick?
Yeah.
Which one do I need?
Yeah.
The whole point, digital came around to help people. If you think about voice control, so Alexa or Siri or whoever, my machines are all going to kick off when I say things like that. They came about because of disabilities. But they help in other ways as well. They've helped us all in the end, whether we have those disabilities they started, but the problem was there, and how do we solve it? So the problem of data security is an absolute real problem. It absolutely is. How do we solve it? I think that's incredibly individual to each company. And it's a minefield figuring it out. It's one of the many areas. So when I if I can get into the company at the right level with the right people, my approach is very much to look at the whole picture and find the problems. And the problems are not necessarily digital, they're just about process or culture, or and data would be included in that. And right, this is your list. What are the right priorities for you, and how far do you need to take them? So we all have different levels, don't we? So, I'm a fairly small company, so I don't have thousands and thousands of people rummaging through my website. It needs to stay fairly light and easy to navigate. I don't have lots of research documents and formulas, and it's about people
What you do,
interaction.
how you get in touch.
Yeah.
Here's what we've done before.
Yeah. So from my perspective, my data security levels are fairly straightforward. Because everyone I interact with is another business owner or person. I don't have their home addresses or phone numbers. It's their work email address I have, and I don't need to get into the data of their customer base. I don't need to know that. So my levels are different to a bank's, or somebody that's collecting bank details, for instance. But I do genuinely think most companies probably still haven't got the data security thing right.
We haven't really covered COVID too much. I don't want to sort of go into big detail about it, but if you just, it'd be interesting to get your take on sort of like the initial kind of thing going into lockdown, like, and how long it took you to kind of, imagining that being the stormy seas, how long did it take to kind of like, be able to navigate it again? Were you sort of, we can't do anything and we're going to have to shut down, or were you straight onto furlough, and how did it kind of work for you?
We were back at the beginning of COVID, we were in a coming out of one building society and heading into another. So we only had two building society clients. So the building society we were exiting from, that just happened a bit quicker, because what happened with a lot of companies like that, the older companies, is they suddenly had this challenge of how does everyone work from home? And they absolutely didn't need to worry about consultants and contractors. We had to come lower down the list, and that's okay. So the both of the building societies we were working with had to take a step back from change and figure out remote working. So we had a quiet period of about 2 months, it might have been 3, where it was just me at that point, and I just took some time to think about what we were, and that's where the digital covered thing evolved from, and that I wanted it to be more of a company than a Debbie does stuff. And why, the why of it, and that all came from the beginning of COVID. And then what does that mean for me longer term? So yes, I'm creating this business that's a bit more on purpose than what I'd been doing before, but also what does that mean longer term for me? And I started thinking about whether I wanted to eventually move into NED roles, so non-executive director roles, or work with charities as a trustee, things like that. So I've dipped into volunteer work over the years, and but I've never stuck at it because of work commitments, because I am a bit of a workaholic. I've never been able to stick at it. I did Samaritans a few years ago, and I highly recommend that experience if anyone wants to do something like that. Fantastic organisation, and you learn a lot about yourself. You don't realize you're going to, but you absolutely do. It's a brilliant experience. So I made a decision to become a trustee, and it had to be an animal charity, going back to my bones. And I became a trustee for the RSPCA. They snapped me up because of my digital marketing background, to be perfectly honest with you, because that's what everyone was looking at. What do we do with digital? Oh my goodness. So I very quickly got busy with them. Obviously that's free, because it's, I'm a trustee, so I'm doing it for free. But I got busy with them, started thinking about a new website, what this business was, where I wanted it to go. And that kept me busy for a little while. And then the building society that I was going to start working with in February, March, popped back up in May. Said, right, we're ready. Like, brilliant, let's get cracking. So I started working with them as well. And then for me, COVID has, if it's done anything, it's made my business better, which I'm so grateful for. I know that's unusual, but people were working remotely anyway. They wanted to know how to do better with digital. Because their customers were working remotely too. They couldn't go into a branch. They couldn't get through on the phone because all the staff were working from home, which meant they took less calls. It's just how it is.
No, yeah, you were there being what was needed at the time.
Yeah, so it was good timing in a way, and it did mean we didn't have to advertise. Or I was talking to someone back in December, excuse me, and she said to me, "You don't do any marketing for your company." And I went, I know, I really should, shouldn't I? I said, but I've never had to. I said,
we're busy enough.
Are you crazy? Are you crazy? So we are now. We're actually out there since early January. We're actually marketing ourselves now, which is it's ridiculous. It's taken me 2 years to do that,
but you kind of have to as well at this point, because it's kind of like, well, you're talking the talk, but you have to be walking the walk as well. Yeah.
So you don't do it at all? Yeah. No, not really. But you should. You should. Yeah, exactly. Well, it's the old adage, isn't it? If you live with an electrician, you never get your lights fixed.
Yeah.
It's all. By the way, I do live with an electrician. It's all that, get round to yourself last. But that's what this quarter's been about for us, putting us first.
Yeah.
And getting back to those basics to prove to other people we do know how to do this. Yeah.
Cool. I think I'm going to go into the UBI question now, because I want to link it in with kind of, so I've asked the question about stress and sort of well-being before, and this was one that I sort of we talked about a fair bit during lockdowns. So I want to kind of bring that back a little bit. But I mean, in terms of work-life balance and like stress and the amount that you work, and you've obviously said you're quite proactive, you're a bit of a workaholic, you've said yourself. So how many hours do you give it? Do you think that's good or bad for you? Like, how are your stress levels? How is your work-life balance and well-being sort of thing? Like, how does that all figure in your working life?
Yeah.
I need to get better at making those all catchy and
the words
sound like I'm actually
how
really
do you balance
clunky.
running a business with all the stress?
Yeah.
I'm doing it now, just making up words. We the biggest and best decision I made in this company was setting my son on, and I haven't told you that yet. So my younger son works for Digital Covered, and it's the best thing I did. And he started here about 13, 14 months ago. And I don't know what I'd have done without him. I'm telling you that from a stress point of view, a well-being point of view. So, he's nearly 26 years old. He's not a baby. And his background is change management and customer service and all of those great things. So it's a good fit.
Yeah.
And of course we have the same values. Because he grew up with me. He didn't have a choice. And we understand each other. So that's a massive thing for me. Who you're working with is a huge part of that stress. And I don't think an hour feels like an hour if you're enjoying it. 5 hours doesn't feel like 5 hours if you're enjoying it.
Yeah.
You forget to make a coffee, or because you're just on a roll. It's great. You're enjoying it. You're energized. The biggest thing during COVID for me with stress was not interacting with enough people.
Yeah.
That was painful. I can go into a room and run a workshop with 20 people without much prep, because I've done it for so long and I know what I'm talking, and I can talk for fun, as you can tell. And I love that interaction. I love meeting new people and learning about them and their challenges and what they need. I love coaching and mentoring, by the way. I can't help myself. I've always done that. So I love meeting people and helping them, not just businesses. And I couldn't do it. And that was awful. That was the most awful thing. Apart from all the normal fears we all had of COVID, that was the hardest thing. So taking Jack on, taking him into the business and having enough work to cover that, of course, was amazing. And then I think work-life balance. So Jack has horses and dogs. We have horses, we have dogs. So between us, we're always running off to do something or other. But we have that complete trust. If somebody said to Jack, how many hours did you do last week? He'd probably say, I have no idea. Don't know. That's just how we are. We're family. It's a family business. And we can do that. We both tend to be early risers. So we're in here before 8 a.m. usually. That means you can get loads done because nobody starts emailing you till after 9.
Yeah.
So that's nice. We did a 2-hour workshop before you and I dialed into this call at 10 a.m.
Yeah.
Been at it for hours. That's how it works. But then we'll get to 3:30, 4 o'clock, and we'll just go.
Yeah.
We'll leave, and it's light enough to walk the dogs. Or
it's the better part of the day, though, isn't it? I mean, like, working in an office, you get to sort of 3:30 is the traditionally like have another coffee, get that last 90 minutes of output.
Crawl to 5 p.m.
Yeah.
So that I'm not the first to leave. All that good stuff. I remember those days.
Yeah, but I mean, when I've been in offices where you have got in early, you get really early, and you get loads done because there's no one around, and there's nothing else to do, so you're just ticking off.
Just get work done. Yeah. When I worked at First Direct, I was running a team of digital marketeers, and I would get in and places like First Direct, HSBC, and I'm not calling them out, but big corporations work you hard. They do. The benefits are great. The experience is fantastic. I don't regret a second of my time, but they work you hard. And I used to get in at 7ish. And it's the other side of Leeds, by the way.
Yeah.
So it's not an easy drive, but I would get in at 7ish. And everyone else would come in about 8:45, thereabouts. And I would get up and go at 4. And I remember one day somebody saying to me, how do you just get up and go at 4 o'clock? Don't you feel weird? I went, no, I was in 2 hours before everyone else. It's okay. But the mentality was the fear of being different or looking like you're not pulling your weight. The fear was there. And I've carried that with me throughout every job I've ever done, and including consulting work. It shouldn't be about that. What's the value you're bringing in?
And I think that's a very interesting point. There is like conformity is weird in a workplace. It's there's weird levels of it and weird expectations. Yeah, and like you feel the need going into a new workplace. I mean, I think people quite often feel the need. I have of like to fall into line or fall into step or to try and behave consistently with everyone else. I mean, I think that's pretty normal in most situations, but I think that's an interesting area.
We want to be valued, don't we? We want to be respected and valued.
We also want to be recognized that we're actually coming in and not just be anonymous.
But I think it's too simple to say, well, if I manage 9 to 5, I must be really good at my job. That's not really quite it. And I think that's another benefit of COVID, because we've been able to be more flexible and work remotely. Your boss cannot see how many coffees you had. And that's okay. They have to find a different way to manage you if you're not doing as well as you could, or struggling or need more support. I'm sure there's a lot more challenges with things like that because they can't see you. But that's just good management. They're just good people skills that people should have or recognize that they need and find them. But to me, the work-life balance is about, and I guess I'm the boss, so it doesn't matter anymore. But it's not about saying, well, I didn't do 7, 8, 9 hours, so I can't be good at what I did today. Actually, you can be a busy fool, can't you?
Yeah.
I see a lot of that. Busy fools. Like, what did you do? Well, I had a meeting after meeting after meeting. But what did you do? My diary
We
is
did
packed.
lots of chats, and I
Yeah,
spent
my
lots of money
diary is
on.
full.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, but what did you do? What did you learn? What will you do differently tomorrow?
Yeah. What did you get paid?
Yeah. That helps too, being paid, doesn't it? Let's
Yeah.
not pretend we don't want money. We all want to be paid. But yeah, I think work-life balance is incredibly important, but it's personal.
Mhm.
And I think if we're thinking at the moment of taking on a junior,
Mhm.
an assistant, we tried last year and it didn't work out with the young guy that we brought in. It wasn't right for him. But we're going to go there again soon, hopefully over the next few months. And
Mhm.
it won't be about being here at 9 a.m. It will be about respect and trust.
Yeah,
And that means certain things. Communication needs to be good,
yeah,
but it will be more, the value will be about what you produce
yeah.
and whether your communication's strong. And, they'll be the things I'll be looking for, but also hoping to help them evolve as well.
Mm.
And I can't time track people. I don't have that need in me to. Oh dear.
No, but yeah, well, there's that. It's it's kind of like, to a degree, some of those roles, like call center roles, I think, especially, or like, those sort of entry jobs, they like to call them. You are treated like children a lot, and a lot of the time that's because, their job's largely for young people starting out in the workforce and so on. But it does, yeah, I think having good, what am I looking for? Good experiences in the workplace. That's what you're looking for when you're starting work. And
Yeah.
once you've got a few of those, and you can kind of go, well, this is the kind of thing that I like. This is what I don't like. This is what I don't want to put up with. Then you get more of a sense of where you want to go and what you want to do, I think.
I have been a call center manager, so if there's anyone listening that knows me from those days, I hope you're not screaming at the computer right now. But you're right. If you have to resource taking 20 calls or 50 calls or 1,000 calls, then you need bums on seats to do that. Absolutely, of course you are. And you need to have an average call length. And you need to know roughly how long people won't be able to take calls. So they're either finishing off a piece of work or they've nipped to the restroom or whatever that is. You need to average those things out. Absolutely. So it does become a bit more of a challenge to be an individual, but I do just think that comes down to management skills and how you create that, how you make it feel and look.
I mean, what made you stay? Like, I mean, call centers like are notorious for sort of, you go in one day, there's 20 people, and the next day there's 10, like for the training and stuff. By 3 months
Like,
in, you're the only
what?
person left. Like, I'm the senior from that cohort.
Yeah, I'm the last one standing. What made me stay?
Yeah.
I didn't do it for that long, but I absolutely loved it. It was at First Direct, and it was back.
Was it just chatting to new people every day?
It,
Was that how you saw
yeah,
it? Yeah.
it was back at the beginning of their journey,
Mm.
and it was there was a sales element in the role. And I didn't mind that, because as long as I was discovering the right needs and just saying, do you know, we've got this and this, would it be of any use to you?
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't a hard sell. It wasn't like the old kind of double glazing salesman or car salesman, or it wasn't that to me. It was, well, if I don't tell you about it and you go away and it might have been the right thing for you. So I saw it as a service. So I didn't mind that. And I think just because I love talking to people, as you can probably tell, I just used to enjoy the calls. I remember one of my managers saying that she'd run out of time and she'd taken some, you would not do this nowadays, would you? But she took some calls home to score. You would not do this now. You would absolutely get crucified. But this is a long time ago. And she'd been playing them out loud whilst kind of scribbling some notes down and things. And I came on and I burst out laughing with this bloke, and we're chatting away. And her son walked in and went, "What the heck was that?" And she went, "Oh, it's just Debbie." And that's what I would do. I would chat away with them, and it would be I would have for that brief period of time, I'd have a relationship with that customer and do whatever I could, and then move on to the next one. And that was the beauty of First Direct in those early days, especially. It was genuinely about service. So I enjoyed it. I really did. And then I moved into a role where I was managing people that were doing that, and some support and training roles, and kind of jumping around like I like to do, doing different things. And I helped them see the joy of it. Not everyone, because you can't reach everyone, but they actually had the best retention rate of all call centers back then.
Yeah, that's no small thing. Yeah.
I don't know what they are now. I won't have a clue.
Yeah.
But back in the day when I was doing it, and it's not about me, but they had really good retention rates.
Oh yeah, it was like a job people wanted.
Yeah.
It was like, like even call centers in other call centers were like, oh yeah, trying to get into First Direct.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was an enjoyable place to be. And if you could get your head in the right place.
Yeah.
If you sat there thinking, well, this is just a sales job and they won't let me go to the toilet, and then of course, why would you? So, mindset.
Yeah. We didn't really cover UBI there, but I think I know what your answer would be. So if we were giving
We didn't do it.
if you were given a universal basic income, so if you were getting like a stipend, you were getting enough cash, you didn't necessarily have to work, would this suddenly become the time that you like, right, I'm going to run off to university and do all my degrees? And
yeah, those things I never did.
Yeah,
all those things I didn't finish.
Or would you keep with the work? Like, what do you think you would do? Do you think you would still keep working? I mean, do you work? You kind of work because you need to work, like you said earlier.
Yeah, I have to work.
Yeah.
Would I would I do this if I didn't need to earn money? Probably yes. Probably still would, because it ticks all my needs. It ticks my boxes of change and fixing things and interacting with lots of new people all the time and helping them. It fulfills those needs in me. I could do that in another way. I could do it in more charity work. So that's an option, definitely. If I didn't need the finances, it could be that I actually lean more into full blown charity work. But I have to work.
When did the idea of I kind of always find this interesting with people with their own businesses. So was it something that you always wanted? But like, did you want to go into business for yourself, be your own boss, or is this something that was just like, this is a necessary next step? Like, did you have that influence? Were there people in your life that sort of were self-employed that you were kind of like, I can do that? I mean, what made you go that route?
So my parents have almost always been self-employed. And they're still going, they're still doing it. Mid-70s, they're running a business. They're still at it. So they're hardworking, really hardworking, but they also have a lot of fun. They're in Florida for 3 months at the minute. So they are absolutely inspiring to me, and that's where I learned my work ethic. Probably I will learn my work-life balance from them as well, if I think about it, because they also spend it and go have fun.
Yeah.
So definitely from that point of view. But for me personally, I've never been driven to run my own business particularly. It's more that's what works to tick all those boxes off.
Yeah, it was
Yeah, so you have to be senior enough in a company to have an influence on the culture and the prioritization and decision making. You have to be at a certain place to be heard. And when I wasn't, that made me unhappy.
Yeah.
So I don't need to be the boss of everything or possibly anything, but am I being heard for the right things? Am I helping? Can people hear me? Can the right people hear me? And is it helpful? Am I able to help? And that's what's led me here more than anything. It's probably the weirdest answer ever, but
no, it's not. I mean, it like it did seem like it would be just given that your career trajectory and what you wanted to do and what you are doing, it was like, well, this is the logical next step for it. So we'll do the climate change question, then I'll come back to social media. So, I just call it the climate change question, but it's like, so basically all the ecological and green stuff, like, is it something that is a priority for you or your company? And is it something that you can't even afford to think about? Like, where does it sit on the sort of spectrum of like, we just can't, or we're doing everything we can, or we're going to put out lots of notices saying that we're really green and then pollute everything? Like, where are you?
Sounds good. Sounds good, doesn't it? There's not. We don't produce anything. We are mostly remote working.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, you can see I'm sat in our office, but it's a mile from the house. It's not far. And Jack's a mile in his house as well. So we're not coming far to get here. When we bought this building rather than renting it, and it's a 1700s building in Horsforth. And I just fell in love with it. But what we've done is we've kitted it. My husband rewired the whole thing, and my other son is also an electrician, so it's very much a family venture. They rewired the whole place, and everything in here is now as green as it can be. We bought reconditioned. Can you see the desks?
Yeah, it looks nice. I saw the dog walking around earlier as well.
That must have been the Labrador, because the other one's tiny and you can't see us. So the desks are reclaimed timbers and scaffolding poles. So that was all reclaimed stuff. And we do what we can. It's not at the top of my list. I'm not constantly thinking, what else can I do? And I'm not sure what else we can do. I did a bit of research into digital green efficiencies. And I couldn't see a lot else we could do, if I'm honest with you. We don't travel much. We don't need to. COVID is our friend there, because people are used to it. We don't have to travel much. So yeah, I'm not sure what else I could do. Somebody can tell me what else I can do and I'll do it. But I'm not sure what else there is. But I'm also not jumping up and down saying we're green as a company. Our social responsibilities are this, that, and the other. I'm not trying to pretend I'm somewhere else. We've done all the things we think we can do.
I mean, I think that comes back to what you were saying about values earlier, because if the values are kind of, well, I mean, it's not like you're not going to support a company in them doing something that they want to do, or you wouldn't take that job on. So your values would dictate which way you would go, sort of ethically, with that. We'll do a quick question about the future, and then I'm going to come on to social media, but I don't know how much we'll have to say about that. We might have loads to say, or so in terms of the future, I mean, it must look pretty. Are you thinking fairly rosy, because there's going to be lots of people who need this service and it looks like it's got good growth potential? Or are you like, oh my God, what's going on? Everything's crazy. I mean, I haven't really done Brexit. I haven't really done the Brexit question. So maybe we'll touch on that a little bit as well. So, I mean, have you noticed any, I can't imagine, and maybe through your clients, of like, has anything changed for you because of Brexit?
No. And I think it's hard to split that out from COVID for bigger companies. So I don't know how anyone can answer that simply anymore, because Brexit, COVID, all, how do you separate all that out? We don't have any clients that are in Europe, so it hasn't impacted us at all. One of our clients has customers abroad, but that hasn't impacted the work we do with them. That's a company we're creating a new website for. So we always start with research into who your customers are first job. And I haven't seen an impact with them either. That's probably the closest I've come. One of my dearest, oldest friends is a HR consultant. She worked in Europe all the time, and that just died.
Yeah.
That just stopped completely.
Yeah.
But she wouldn't have been able to go with COVID anyway. So again, I don't know how you split those things out. And I think it's starting to warm up again for her now. Normal seems to be coming, doesn't it? Whatever that looks like. So yeah, I don't think Brexit had a big impact on us. I think COVID did in a positive way, which is probably weird, but yeah. Were you asking me about the future, or did we get sidetracked again?
Yeah. So in terms of looking forward, I mean, are you quite positive about the future? Are you quite optimistic? I mean, it sounds like it's going well, touch wood, and will continue to do so.
I am very optimistic about the future. We are just in that period of what are we redefining us? What do we want to do? But I'm really excited about that. We've got some really interesting ideas about what we want to do. It will never be about making a fortune for me. It's in part, this company's a legacy for Jack. If he wants it, he might turn around and say, I don't want it. Thank you. That was great, Mum, but I've had enough of you. I'm going. That could happen too, of course. But, I'm hoping it's a company that can be sustained in the next few years, that he can just roll with, and he can start steering the ship. And he will be fantastic at that. For me personally, I'm working on that's the priority, and what do we look like, and how do we attract new clients. But I'm also thinking longer term for me, and back to my thing of needing to fix stuff and have lots of change. The avenues for me in 5 years time, say, wouldn't be working in this office, in this business, because Jack will have had enough of me by then, I'm quite sure. And it needs to be his baby. Mine is, I'm considering kind of leadership coaching, non-executive directorships, things like that. So that's longer term, 5 years or so. That's next for me, I hope. Because again, they tick those boxes just in a different way. So yeah, I have a plan.
Will you retire?
No,
No.
heavens no. My parents are 75 years old, and they are making furniture. They run an upholstery business.
Yeah.
And they do the work. There's only the two of them, and they do it in Canada, not here. But that's what they do. They still make furniture, sofas.
Crazy. Well, at that point, you want to be like, totally artisan, don't you? Like, well, we'll only make 3 a year, and they'll cost you this much.
I keep saying to my mum, put your prices up and do a bit less.
Yep.
It's like, oh, no, you're crazy. They are so good at what they do. It's ridiculous. They are the best. They fit out yachts and all sorts. But they're too cheap, in my opinion. But that's what can I do? But that's where I get my worker bee mentality from. And I can't imagine not working, but I do think you have to enjoy it. That's the challenge for most of us. Finding something we want to do, finding something we enjoy doing. And for me, that's why it's really hard when people try and pigeonhole me, because it's not about the thing, it's about the why. And the why is I just want to help. And the things ended up being digitally marketing-y stuff.
Yeah.
Because that's what I learned. They're the skills I learned. But it really is more about helping fix things and helping people.
Thank you again to Debbie for being my guest. Thanks again to all my guests, and thanks to you for listening. If you're listening to this, I assume you have some connection to Leeds, like living here or being from here. If you're such a person in Leeds or from Leeds and you haven't done your recording for working hours yet, then don't wait. Email me right now. Quick, get a pen. workinghourspod@western-studios.com. Let's arrange some time for us to record your working hours interview. If you fancy being my guest, put guest in the subject of your email and add a short bio and some suggestions of your availability. If you want to be on working hours, we will need a 2-hour window in which to record. I can record in your work time or during your downtime. I have been recording interviews over Zoom for over a year, but I can record offline too. You can appear on Working Hours anonymously, or you can promote yourself and or your company or your brand. Cleaner or owner, what is your experience? How do you feel about work? What do you like and not like? What do you do, Leeds? Be a part of local history, have your voice heard, share your wisdom, give us the inside skinny. This is your show, Leeds. It's all about what you make of yourself. Do you know what you're doing? If you do, then come and tell me about it. Come on, even if you don't. Email me right now. Get that pen, workinghoursPod@western-studios.com. If you're allowed to, that is. If you're not allowed to, then tell me why not. If you and your business aren't ashamed of what you do, then let's hear about it. What good are you doing the rest of us? Are you socially useful? Am I? Is this? Email me right now. Get that pen. workinghoursPod@western-studios.com. Send me feedback, questions, comments and queries about Working Hours. What is happening, Leeds? Follow this show on Twitter @WorkingHours3 and on Instagram @WorkingHoursPodLeeds to find out when episodes are being released, or use the hashtag WorkingHoursPod to find me on either. I'm also on Facebook, but I hate it there. I'm also on LinkedIn, linkedin.com/in/Simon-Treen, or you can go to my company page, which is linkedin.com/company/Western-Studios. If you want to make a podcast in Leeds, whether it's for a cause, a publicity campaign, a product promotion, and or your passion projects, then get in touch with Western Studios for support, advice, and guidance on anything podcasts. At Western Studios, you can work with a real loiner who is actually in Leeds, that you can actually work with on making podcast content. So don't wade through articles and videos and podcasts about how to make podcasts. Western Studios can just make your podcast with you or even for you. Western Studios can take on your podcast admin, recording, editing, transcription, whatever. Tell me about it. I really want to hear from other failed screenwriters such as myself to look at making your material as audio content. So if you have an old script hanging around, and again, you are Leeds based, then get in touch. I'd love to hear from you. Ditto to performers and actors who might be interested in doing voice work. Got an inkling that you'd like a podcast, but you don't know where to start? Then hit me up at makemypodcast@western-studios.com and we'll start making your podcast. The first hour of consultation and pre-production will be free for you, so get in touch and let's have a chat. Save the hassle, save the headache, and make your podcast with a Leeds-based, in-real-life podcast producer, me, at Western Studios Leeds. Once again, please let Working Hours get big and strong by joining its Patreon. Support Working Hours by becoming a champion on Patreon for £1 a month. You can also chat to me about the show, and God, do I need to find someone to talk to about this. Go to patreon.com/workinghourspod right now and sign up, please. Please remember to like, share, follow and subscribe to this show. Every little bit helps. Tell your gran, tell your housekeeper, tell your gardener, tell your parole officer, tell your boss, tell Leeds, and I'll see thee next time. Working Hours is presented, edited and recorded by Simon Treen for Western Studios Leeds Limited. The music was The Bees from Chopin's Etudes, which is in the public domain and was taken from museopen.org.